morning, good evening, good night, whatever time you're watching this. Today I have the grand honor of having the chartered members of Agueybana Lodge in City Island.
City Island.
They hail from the Grand Lodge of New York. Um, Rene, I appreciate you setting this up and getting the brothers here. If we can start from right to left, and you guys can introduce yourselves. Go ahead.
My name is Brother Rene Perez. I am the Junior Warden of Agueybana.
My name is Victor Negron, and I am the first Worshipful Master of Agüeybaná Lodge.
My name is Right Worshipful Timothy Rios, and I am the Senior Warden of Agueybana Lodge.
My name is Brother Wilbert Greene, a past pastor, Wilbert Greene, one of the founding members.
It's a pleasure, and for those that don't know, this is a Masonic lodge, and culturally, the objective of having you all here starting this lodge was what? If who wants to give me the genesis or the origin story of the lodge? Would that be you, Worsh?
Sure. So the way that we started the lodge was I come out of the 10th Manhattan District, and there's already a lot of ethnic lodges in the 10th. There's Italian lodges, there's French lodges, Brazilian lodge, Turkish lodge. So in the 10th, it's not foreign for us to have kind of this idea of an ethnic lodge. We do accept people that are not Puerto Rican. It's not that we're excluding people. We still believe in masonry, that we all meet on the level, but the spirit of the lodge is promoting the Puerto Rican culture. The first person that I started having conversations with was with Brother Rene, and that kind of spiraled into bringing in Right Worshipful Tim and Worshipful Will, and after that, it just organically more and more brothers kept coming in until we're here now. It's kind of been a 2-year adventure to be here, but really it was the work of all the brothers to kind of see this come to fruition. But that kind of was like the genesis of everything.
Now, Freemasonry in New York and in the U.S. recognized lodges fall under Grand Lodge jurisdiction. So the practice of Freemasonry it has a curriculum. It's supposed to be practiced this way, from degrees, conduct, it's a civic organization, how you present yourself to the public. What's different about what you guys are doing over there that's different from anything else? Don't be bashful.
So look, I think that there was 2 reasons, at least in my mind, why we created Agüeybaná Lodge, or why we felt like there was a need. One was that a lot of us are part of different bodies, part of different lodges, and that kind of was like, not the problem, but the reason why we decided to come together, right? Because there was a lot of Puerto Ricans that we had similar backgrounds. We were kind of close in age, but we kind of were spread out through the jurisdiction. So when I was talking to Brother Rene, I said, look, we need to create our own lodge where this is going to be our temple for our people, for our culture, so that we can make something representative of us, right? Which we didn't see throughout the jurisdiction. So we wanted to create a place where we could come together, plant our flag, and say, hey, we're Puerto Ricans and we could do masonry. And yeah, that kind of was one thing. But the second thing was that, you become a master mason and you take the obligation and you hear the words of the obligation, and they tell you, hey, you're empowered to make masons, you're empowered to start a lodge, you're empowered to, so that empowerment we really wanted to do, right? So we wanted to empower ourselves, because all of us came from humble beginnings. Like, we didn't have this long heritage or legacy in masonry like some other brothers do. We really came from, again, humble beginnings. All of us came across masonry different ways, but we wanted to empower each other so that we could go back to the community, back to the community in the Bronx, the Puerto Rican community back in Puerto Rico, in order to empower others. Because we do believe in the tenets of Masonry, that if the community and the young men know what we're doing here, that it'll be a better situation, right? So that kind of was like what was motivating us.
Yeah, especially nowadays, currently in modern day, you see there's a lot of effort trying to blend everything. And to me, one thing that I always loved is to see somebody that looked like me doing certain things, whether it be a football player, whether it be a chef, you know, to see Masonry with Caribbean culture backing it. It's way different. Like, anybody can eat, but Chinese food tastes different than Italian food. You know, it's like, how does this culture do it? And it's wonderful to see that, especially, like, you know, watching the Garibaldi Lodge and seeing a degree in Italian. You know, that's mind blowing. You know, and it really expands your interest in this. Do you guys
I can add on?
Yeah, of course.
So, like my word said, it was something that when we looked at this, every lodge, right, in Masonry, we all doing something. Sometimes we get lost, though. Right? We start doing things for votes. We start doing things to move up the Masonic career. When the words brought it to us, it was like we could go into the community and help the community, right?
Your community.
Our community,
Yeah,
right? Where the majority of our people are at, right? Like, where could we do it? So we meet. It was all strategically done, right? I said this before. You know, we formed like Voltron, and that's the head. Like when the RZA said the RZA was the head of the Wu-Tang, right? He's the head. He sees it and puts it out there. Right? We all come with ideas, and he'll put it all together. So he said the Bronx. That was one time the biggest population of Puerto Ricans outside of the island. So where could we go where we could give back to the community? Let's go to City Island. We met there, right? We could go back to the community with people that these young kids see us. They're like, oh, these are bros, you know, and these are upright men, right? They're doing good things. We got from all walks of life, judges, lawyers, cops, trashmen, everybody's there.
Dwelling
together, and they could see us in the community like, oh, I could be like that. Like you hit on it before. Oh, people that look like us, right? And it's not only that, it's that they look like us, that's a plus, but it's that we wanted to be there. We are in tune with these kids. We're in tune with it. I know how they feel. I know what they went through, and how to speak to them, to come to their level or bring them up to our level and communicate with them, right? So we'll go, what we did, we sponsored a baseball team, right? The coach says, you know, Sam, man, this is nice. We got a bunch of sponsors, but we never met them. Right, and the lodge, the worst gives the opportunity. Any idea that's there, there's no fight back. Like, let's do it. One of the brothers, South Bronx brother, Dennis Martinez, he's like, yo, let's go meet the bros. I was with the mentality of like, we already donated. You know, they got the jerseys, and he goes, I want to see the kids. They go bring them some popcorn. We'll bring some water. We go. The coach says, this is amazing. We never met anyone that donated to us.
Wow.
We never met anybody. This is great. So, and from there, that one little, that donation turned into other lodges want to donate. The Yankees want to donate to give to these kids. So that it sparked into something different, to something bigger. And hopefully we could inspire a father that may want to join, right? That'll see, like, oh, I like what you're doing. We could also show those kids, this is what Masons do. This is what, help the community, help each other, making the world a better place, one man at a time, one kid at a time, right? Growing this thing. Go to the island, we're helping the island out. We're donating to the island. The island is helping us. They're supporting, right? We're connected to you, right? Hasta la luna somos boricua, right? There's that saying, right? They say that, but there's a disconnect there. Tú eres de allá afuera, right? Tú eres descendiente de boricua, pero tú no eres boricua, right? They'll say something like that. Right. But in reality, like I had to hit one of them in the head with, oh yeah, he had a Belgian Malinois. You know, a Mally's them police dogs.
Right.
Like, yo, oh man, that's a nice dog. He's like, yeah, that's my dog. I said, oh man, he's a Belgian Malinois, right? Yeah. He was born. Where was he born at? He was like, yo, I raised him. He was in my yard. I said, oh wow. So he goes, I got puppies if you want. I said, yeah. But he was already on telling me stuff. I said, oh yeah. But I like Belgian Malinois. He was like, but it is a Belgian one. I said, no, it's Puerto Rican Malinois. Like, oh, I said, I see, no. Like, he's I see, no. I said, and then he understood what I was saying.
Right.
Even though we born outside, it's in your blood. A Boricua's a Boricua, right?
Yeah,
and
culture's different.
The culture may be a little different, but the blood is there.
Right.
Hasta la luna somos Boricua. And we waving that flag.
Proudly.
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 They are prideful too.
But it's almost like when a team wins a championship, but you are in an away stadium. You know what I mean? It's like I'm bringing the chip back home.
Yeah.
So I would say that. But
I mean, the flag was made here in New York City, you know. But as far as the genesis part of how we got this lodge starting, I will go back and forth to the island and visit family. And I remember a couple of years ago, I went for a Masonic, just to visit a Masonic lodges because I wanted to see if I had any family members who were for my mother, you know, for my family who were members. So I visited a lodge in Maya West. I contacted the secretary there, and what I did was, before going, I went in every Facebook Puerto Rican Masonic lodge group, and I communicated with everyone there. So the one I wanted to go to was the one in Maya West because supposedly that was the first Grand Lodge or something like that from Santiago Palmer. He was the first Grand Master of Puerto Rico. So when I went over there, coming back, Vic, I met him through the Scottish Rite, and that's how we met. And I was telling him I would go to the island, I would visit the lodges, and it's such a small world how everything came, you know, this whole full circle. Yeah. And Will, I met in City Island the first time visiting, and when we met, you know, he was from the same neighborhood I grew up at, and it turns out our family members know each other. And we met each other through Masonry.
Small world.
Yeah. So with Tim, I met him in the Grand Lodge, I think it's Scottish Rite too.
Yeah. Upstairs
in the secretary room. And what I did was I was telling him, look, I go visit lodges in Puerto Rico. Do you want to affiliate with a lodge? He said, yeah. I told him too. So me and him, all three of us was trying to affiliate with a lodge out there, but it kept taking time because there was a situation over there. So that's when he said, hey, why don't we just, then the Grand Master of Puerto Rico came down, and I did a lecture for him for Eastern Star Chapter. They brought him down, and she said, Angelina, her name is Angelina, she said, you want to do a lecture for the Grand Master? I said, that would be a pleasure, yeah. So I invited them, and they came down, they met Aníbal. And he just came to me and said, why don't we just create a Puerto Rican lodge? You know, I was like, yeah, sure. So when he said, you know, what name, you know, when we all of us got together, Will, Tim, and me and him, we all just got together, and I said, you know, most lodges name their lodges after ex-Masons. Like you have, like even in Puerto Rico, they're the same, right? But why not name our lodge after our indigenous roots? You know, Agüeybaná was a powerful chief in Puerto Rico, and it's never been done before. And you know, and the word way means the sun, and Bana means expansion or expansion of knowledge. Right, and Masons are followers of light. You see, so that's why we named it after a chief, but also it fits the whole concept of Agüeybaná as Masons. You know, so followers of light.
From I don't know who wants to answer this question, but from start to finish, from the idea to the charter, how long did it take you guys to secure that?
You know, from started with $1 and a dream, right? We first met at a cigar lounge in Brooklyn, July of 2023, to present this idea with a set of bylaws. See exactly who was willing to get on board. Now, our Constitution dictates it takes 7 Master Masons, right? That was the easy part. It was making sure that everybody knew what the idea was going to be and exactly the process and how long it was going to take. We planned to submit the request for dispensation. Unfortunately, we missed the deadline, so we were delayed. So to answer your question from beginning to end, from the idea to getting the charter now at this past Grand Session, about 2.5 years.
That's beautiful.
1 year alone is under dispensation. So you can act and have all the rights of a lodge with the exception of voting at Grand Lodge because you're not chartered and you're not paying per capita. but you can initiate, pass, raise. You can form bylaws, have all your officers, and it's quite tedious, the paperwork. Thankfully, we had a lot of support from Grand Lodge, including from Right Worshipful Richard Bateman, in addition to Right Worshipful Richard Schultz, who provided tremendous amount of emails and guidance and double checked and triple checked everything for us. So the love from our jurisdiction was there. It wasn't just we came up with an idea, here's the papers, good luck, have fun with it, come back to it when you're done. No, they actually held our hand through the entire process. So from beginning to end, even though 2.5 years seems like a long time, at no point did we ever feel like we were in the dark, we were unknown to what we were doing or left to be stranded. No, we felt the tremendous amount of love that the jurisdiction as a whole wanted this to happen.
Now, how have you guys been received by the native Puerto Rican lodges?
So I'll answer that, but to build upon what Right Worshipful Tim was saying. When we started this, right, this started as a couple of guys just, shooting the breeze, like, oh yeah, let's do this. As we kept talking and it got more serious, we started creating bylaws and meeting. We had no idea what we were doing. Right Worshipful Tim, we started reading up on, and I think the beautiful part about the process is that it's difficult, but you learn a lot about Masonry. You learn a lot about the rules, about the procedures, about the Constitution, what you can and can't do. And just to get those 7 signatures on the petition to request a dispensation was difficult because you have to be a Master Mason, but you can't hold elective office in any symbolic lodge, which was an issue for a lot of us because we were active. So, we had to make a lot of sacrifices, get off lines in order to submit the petition. But I think that in that struggle, in that process of trying to figure it out, that's what really cemented us, right? And kind of created that camaraderie. And the other thing that it showed me was that Masonry, we don't have distinctions. And I'm gonna kind of, dovetailing into what you were asking. And one of the other things is that I needed to get in the 10th Manhattan District at least half of the lodges to approve of the creation of Agüeybaná Lodge. Wow. So I had to speak to at that time we had 15 lodges, now 16th with Agüeybaná. So I had to speak to every single worshipful master and tell them, hey, we're trying to start this new lodge, this Puerto Rican lodge. Mind you, these people have no connection to Puerto Rico. What I was amazed was they didn't even question it. They said, look, if you need our support, we're going to give it to you. And I'm talking about, people that come from France, Turkey, all over the world that supported this idea of creating the Puerto Rican Lodge. And not that it was required of us, but we all felt that it was important that the Grand Lodge of Puerto Rico knew about what was going on and that they also supported. So I went to the Grand Lodge of Puerto Rico and I spoke to the Grand Master, and we had a long conversation about what we were trying to do, and most worshipful Aníbal, and he was like, look, you got the Grand Lodge of Puerto Rico support. And true to his word, the support from Puerto Rico has been outstanding. I mean, Worshipful Will and I just came back, right? Worshipful Tim, we were just in Puerto Rico. And every time we go, it's like we're at home, right? The Deputy Grand Master, Carlos Barreto, also a great support to our lodge, and they have been so supportive. So I've never felt, at least Masonically, any type of division or them saying, "Oh no, you're not really, you're not really Puerto Rican." It has been the complete opposite. They have been fully supportive. They've come out to our events. They flew from Puerto Rico on their own dime to come and see our degrees. I think every single degree we have brothers from Puerto Rico here.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the outpouring of support from the Grand Lodge of Puerto Rico, we appreciate. And just like very worshipful Tim said, from the district, the 10th Manhattan, and from Grand Lodge, everybody has been so supportive of the idea coming to fruition. So
But even their families.
right,
Because Carlito's wife hugs us like we her kids, like we family. Aniba, his father, his mother, like they're strong. We went to brother Danny. We went to his house. We were over there. We smoking cigars at his house. Like they took us in like family,
It's
like
NPR?
NPR, yeah. And Laila, we over there. We back and forth. So I'm always over there. But they take us in like family. It's that old school love.
Yeah.
That's the motherland. That's where they show us so much love, and we try to reciprocate that. The Grand Lodge came out, I believe, when we had the UD, and we try to show them around New York. We bring them around, took them to a Yankee game. We was all there at the Yankee, went to go smoke cigars, same thing. The Masonic stuff.
course.
Went to go smoke cigars, and we went to a Yankee game. That was their time seeing, they over there seeing Yankee Stadium, hanging out with us in the Bronx, right? So we try to keep that friendship, that brotherly love, but the bond of that's our people.
Yeah, I mean, the pride that comes with just being Puerto Rican it's something that you can't almost explain. And I'm sure the pride that comes with being the first Puerto Rican lodge in New York, under a jurisdiction that grants other countries, Grand Lodges, Grand Lodge rights to practice Masonry. I mean, you guys are living history right now. 100 years, 200 years from now, you guys were the first chartered members. I mean, that's something to be very proud of, And, we chartered a grotto here in Suffolk County, and, deciding who was going to fit what position, what role, everybody wants to be the first. What made you lucky enough to be the first worshipful master, and how did you get everybody on board to just roll with that? I mean, it showcases who all of you guys are, to fit what roles and just to be the wind underneath everybody else's wings,
Drake got a song.
Mm-hmm.
He said it's God's plan.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that was. It was
There you
God's
go.
plan. Everything worked out. It was all synchronized. It was all part of the plan. Not our plan. That's the divine's plan. The way this all worked out. I could say, like he said, I met Rene at City Island, and we talking. Yo, I'm from Brooklyn, East New York. You from East New York? Me too. Warwick. Oh, me too.
Mm-hmm.
Come to find out, we from the same area. I never met him in East New York, but my cousin, he's Crazy Tito. Used to be with his father. Used to be in his house, hang out with him.
Right.
Then his uncle, I'm on the phone. Yeah, I know you live over there in Canarsie. I know your mother. I would go to their house. I'm like, I didn't know our families were intertwined like that.
That's amazing.
Right? The worst, Negron. He comes to the lodge. I was a Prince Hall Mason. Comes to the lodge, visit. We talk. I'm like, yeah, I was just in the island. We doing some bomba. He says, oh, my mother does bomba. Where? Here. I said, who's your mother? Oh, what's the name again?
Danza Fiesta.
Danza Fiesta. I said, Danza Fiesta. My wife used to dance with them. Like, what? Yeah, when my wife came from Puerto Rico, she was dancing with them. Who's your wife? Miteri. Oh, I know Miteri. I know her brother. I used to work out with him. It's like, see how it all intertwined?
Right. God keeps his people together.
That was God's plan, right? It all came in for it to be. So to be the first is cool. It's for us to be able to continue it, right? Like you mentioned, 100 years. We got to make sure that this foundation is strong. I put everything on the line. I left my jurisdiction to come make sure that this is here, right? I was in a strong lodge, one of the best lodges in the world. For me, that's what I felt. They strong. It was a strong lodge, right? I want to give what I gave to that lodge. I need to, because we don't have dual membership. Because I can't be a member of a voting member, a brother with a, and I can't. And the worst made his first order of business was to make me an honorary member. That was his first order of business. These brothers support me. I support them. We build together. I was always felt like an equal, even though I wasn't a member. Now that I'm a member, I'm here and I'm like, okay, I have to give 100. So I gave 100, and it's for the rest of the brothers that follow behind us. To give that 100, to feel that love, to feel the plan, to keep that machine going. That we're gonna make sure that this continues, right? This culture that we have, that we're building, this connection that we have with the island, that it continues outside. It's like like what's going on now with the coqui, right?
Mhm.
The coqui got to live forever, right? No matter what, this lodge got to live forever.
Yeah, it's amazing, brother. And I mean, the sacrifices that you guys underwent just to continue this and make it happen. I mean, it's something to be said for. We were talking earlier, like you were saying, about training your replacement, right? Because a lot of times, you come under you're given power, and to relinquish that power, it's almost like I'm relinquishing my worth, and it's not always like that, especially in masonry. You're bidding when you come to the head of the chair, your responsibility is to serve the brotherhood and serve the purpose and serve the vision and to train your replacement so the next guy can continue the progress, not maintain the status, but to continue the progress. So, what are your guys' vision for that going forward?
Before I answer that question, it went when we decided about the sitting of the chairs.
Okay.
He was just like, Rene, I'll put you as worse. They would say, hey, Tim, I'll put you as worse. I said, I was senior deacon at the time of my mother-in-law. I said, look, I'm not in a rush. I don't care who's in the chair. To me, it doesn't mean anything to me. The plan was just to get this lodge
The vision was
started.
greater
That's
than,
what
yeah,
exactly.
I love that.
And I said, Vic, go ahead. And he asked Tim. Tim was just like, yeah, Vic, you can do it. So the plan of this lodge, which from visiting different lodges, what I've noticed is a lot of lodges and brothers who sit in that chair in the East, the ego gets to them. There's a lot of egos in here.
Yeah.
So the plan was to not have that here, and that we're all on the level, and we wanted to show what is brotherhood, what truly is brotherhood is about, with no egos, and we all respect each other, even each other's family. We call each other every day. We're in communication almost every day, and that was the plan, and like right now, like what Will said, Will goes to the island almost every day. I met his wife before I met him, interesting enough, in the Bronx at the hostels, and then when he told me his wife was, I was like, oh, that's your wife? I met her before, so everything has every synchronicity, not coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in synchronicity. And like this was supposed to happen, and if I was to tell you the installation for the offices, when we planned this, there was, because for me traveling from Philadelphia and meeting different brothers in every state who were Puerto Rican too, I told them we were doing this. You had to see how many people came to that lodge.
Wow.
It was like a fire hydrant. There was no more chairs. There were people sitting outside, and Worship with Tim had a plan who was going to install this. We have Ernie Hudson.
Yeah.
Well, his son is a Mason who installed us.
He was the installing marshal. We had Right Worshipful Stanrick Adams as the installing master. It was packed out. Like Brother Rene said, we had people in the hallway that were just happy to be there and hear what was going on because you couldn't even see from a part of the room. But when the idea founded, I was on my way into becoming a Right Worshipful. Brother Rene was not in a rush. And, Victor had the amazing idea. He had the wisdom to pull together people to make this idea come true. So it made sense for him to be master. Rene was like, hey, I don't mind being junior warden because I want to, take my time. So I said, okay, I'll be senior warden. Happy to do the paperwork. So Victor had the wisdom. I had the strength to fight through the paperwork and the constitutions and communication with Grand Lodge. Rene came up with the beautiful name of our lodge name and all other aspects of it. And then we had Will, who was the cement that kept us three pillars grounded to make sure we stood on the path, that we had the vision, that when I felt like leaning to the side and falling over, he was that cement that said, no, you're going to stay right there because you got this. So, yes, every lodge has three pillars, but the beauty about this lodge, it has four. And, Worshipful Will has done amazing, astounding stuff for us. If anything, for those that can see, the banner behind us is his contribution to the lodge. Rene's beauty of the emblem. It's all one big mix. And at the end of the day, it's truly a 25, 25, 25, 25 to make that 100% idea come true.
Yeah, I mean, so many organizations are plagued by, ego and so many things stop progress. So when you have something that just can organically grow the way this is grown, and it touches the Caribbean, it touches North America, and it also not only touches but binds, it builds that bridge. I mean, everywhere is
Bro,
home that way,
you said, excuse me, a lot of organizations are plagued by ego, but with our organization, in the first degree, it teaches us to subdue our passions. So we should be learning, right? You said, what are we doing to prevent it? We're teaching masonry, right? We're teaching these young brothers, these new brothers coming in. That is our goal, to teach it, to live it.
And being a living example.
Living example, like, dude, this is what it is, right? To be mindful, to be watchful for those ruffians, right? For all the ruffians. We got to watch those too. But we teach them the foundations, teach them from the beginning, masonry. Live this. Be an upright man, right? Not only to your lodge, to your brother, just for to move to the next position, to the next seat, to your wife, to your kids, to your job, to that homeless man in the street. When you're walking around, who are you? What spirit is guiding you, right? So we teaching that, we live in that. Let's live this, right? And hopefully it'll grow, right? It'll keep going. And if we prevent the brothers coming in, we can't. There's a lot of brothers that come in with ambition, right? They're gonna have ambition. They want that. They like that, right? And that is drunkening, right? You become drunk with power, right? But if we could control the situation to a certain level and guide them the right way, let them know, slow down. This is not what we do as a lodge. Now you want to do that, and we know that you can't. We'll support what you want to do. We'll support if you want to go be the president of the United States. Let's do it. Let's support you. But our large focus, our foundation is what built us together. It's for that island that we call the motherland. It's for those people in our community that look like us, that are us, for all people, right? For we don't discriminate. It's for all people. But for the place that we came from, that we ran in them streets in, that we was there, we understand where they was at. We understand that we could help one kid. We could help a person. Right? As long as that keeps that same energy, I believe that the lodge could continue forward. I believe that the lodge will grow. I believe that masonry will grow. Can't worry about the other people that can't do it.
Now, we touched on what makes your lodge. I want to touch on what makes you guys. So I'm gonna start with you first, brother, because you're cooking right now. So, prior to you finding this great fraternity, this great organization of Freemasonry, who were you? Like, what kind of student were you? What kind of kid were you? What kind of teenager were you?
Well, this statute of limitations of stuff. So I was
I'm not talking just things that you've done, accomplished, sports teams, but like when you woke up in the morning, what were your thoughts like? Is there something better? Like what makes you? What's the composition of your thoughts and your mindset approaching life?
Well, my superhero, right? I'm looking at my superhero. I'm like, yo, man, he did this coming from where he came from, and was able to keep a family together and keep everything together, right? My father, that's my superhero. He was able to come from the muck and mire, from a family of 13, poverty, like real poverty, East New York poverty, right? And keep a family, have a young, get my mother pregnant at a young age. They was only 20, 21 years old, and was able to stick 50 years together, right?
God bless.
Thank you. And going through the ups and downs, but he stuck together, right? And I seen him as a man, how he would be, how he acted with other people in the streets, how he raised us. I felt he was strict, but that was actually a foundation. Like, yo, don't get lost in these streets, right? So when I seen that, yes, you swerve away a little bit, but you come back because you got a foundation. You have that culture. You have that father, that mother there, right? So me as a person, I wasn't a bad person, right? I didn't have the negativity or the evil intent, right? I had to come into finding myself, right? To finding myself. And I tell all young men, wait until you're 30 to start settling down. You start young, you still want to experience life. You still want to hang out. You still want to do things like that. You still want to party. As you get to 30, right, and it's crazy how at 33 they say Jesus died, right? He became a man. You start living another life. You start somehow maybe just the hormones, right, slows down. You ain't producing as much. So I feel like I slowed down at 30, and I started realizing, yo, I don't want to be in partying. That's not my thing no more. I want to settle down. I want to be a family man. I want to have a wife. I don't need all these girls. I don't need a lot of that. I did that already. So settle down. I want to be successful. I want to be able to give back to my community. I want to help people. I always wanted to help. So I feel like I was a person that was good, but could be led the wrong way. I did things and never got caught up to where I was getting too much trouble, right? We could have, and there's all of us. There's our community that some of us got lucky and didn't get caught up. Some of us got caught up, but we always had a second chance.
Yeah. I mean, in this day and age, especially coming up, it's like there's so many distractions, so many things that could pull you off the beaten path. Not only that, but like New York, it's expensive to live here. Parents gotta work. They're not always there. I feel bad for the newer kids because the neighborhood isn't as close as it was.
Right.
Back in the day, you didn't want to do anything to disrespect your last name, disrespect your family, or if you did, it would make it back to the house before you got home. I saw so-and-so doing this and, whatever they were doing. So you didn't want to bring dishonor to the household where you slept, ate, did all those things.
Right, that's a fact.
And there was so many, like, imagine there were cell phones back in those days.
Oh, man.
It'd be a different ball game. But, the community was a lot closer. And if your parents weren't there, somebody was there to look out. But
there was more family living together.
Right.
Like I'm Puerto Rican and black. So my Puerto Rican grandmother is East New York. So the buildings were, they almost like row house. They're together, but there were two different houses, but the windows were together.
Right.
Like so they were the two old ladies looking out the window. Right, they didn't understand each other because one of my Puerto Rican grandmother didn't speak English, and my black grandmother didn't understand it. Right, didn't understand Spanish, but they would still look out watching the kids. Right. So now I got my black family living on Skank, my Puerto Rican family living on Warwick, Ashford. We all grew up together. Right, we all partied together. We all did everything together as a family. Like Rene got a bunch of family over there. Our families were so big that they were intertwined. We all knew each other. They knew each other. It just so happened I didn't get to meet Rene at the time, but I think back then the community was together. People were outside. We were playing skelly. We played football outside, manhunt. Things were done outside.
It was way different.
Now we on the computer. It's like almost like society is becoming isolated, right? Which is depression too, right? A lot of people there, you see them online. It looks like they're having fun. They really depressed. You start really getting into them right now. It's a front.
When you're little, like you're in your little bubble of comfort, and even the algorithms on your phone, everything kind of just agrees with you.
Yes.
So you can't even have conflicting ideas because the cell phone's not going to really present that to you.
Right.
So now when you meet that in the real world, well, back in the day, you'd be arguing who's better, Magic or Jordan or
Biggie, Jay-Z or Nas.
Right. Or LeBron, who's better? You couldn't have those discussions. So even the art of conversation is kind of going down. You wouldn't have those late night conversations on the stoop. You wouldn't have those back and forth. So we're losing that.
And this is the beauty of Freemasonry.
Right.
Right? Because Freemasonry brings us back into that. You have to, right? They started that Zoom thing. When people were going to Zoom and they're doing meetings on Zoom, it's cool. But you must feel that grit, right? There's a reason why they had that. You gotta see the person. You gotta hear. You gotta see, right? You have to do all that. You
understand emotion and be able to read.
You have to be able to feel that person, be next to them, right? Masonry has to stay with that, so that we all can meet on a level.
Right.
We can all see each other. You can. It's different. It's a different vibe when you type it on the computer. Interpret it different. And I need to feel that energy to see how I'm gonna deal with you. Right. Are you gonna approach me the same way as you talking on the computer if you was face to face with me? Right. Did I receive that energy? Are you keeping that? What energy are you sending to me that I have to reciprocate? How am I coming versus on the computer versus a text versus on the phone? When you face to face to somebody, it's different.
It's way different.
And you can have a conversation. You have a dialogue. we could talk, so that opposing opinion that I have or fact, you could come to me with it and say, no, that's wrong because, and we could keep going back and forth versus waiting and text messages, all that. No, let's have a conversation. Let's
Even
talk.
even mannerisms, the way you're sitting, the way you present yourself,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
all of those things, the openness that
That's
you
a
are,
fact, yes.
to see somebody open to a response, or to see how, you know, they project their voice, and the way they sit up, you know,
Yes.
if they say something that resonates with them. It all goes hand in hand with delivery and understanding. You know,
Yes,
some
yes.
people listening to understand, some people listening to respond. But as far as that transition, you know, going back to the initial question, as far as that transition from adolescence to adulthood, what brought you into masonry, or what
Well,
made you interested?
I always dealt with knowledge of self.
Mhm.
Right? I was always a seeker of light. Always, whether it was through church, whether it was through history, through learning from Malcolm X, learning from reading about Albizu Campo, reading about these teachers, right? And then what I started learning was they were all somehow connected to masonry.
That's what brought me in too.
Yeah, I've looked at Albizu Campos. I thought he was a Mason. He wasn't. His father was, right? I started looking at Malcolm X, right? I read his book. I was like, wait a minute. Malcolm X came, or the 5% Nation. He started dealing with the father, which is Clarence 13X. And this question and answer form that way, he was part of Nation Islam. What's Nation Islam? Louis Farrakhan, you start going, who's Louis Farrakhan's teacher? Elijah Muhammad. Read Elijah Muhammad. He said he was a Mason. Now I'm reading Marcus Garvey. I'm reading about George Washington. I'm reading all these people, and somehow it all went back to masonry, right? Why? What was in this masonry thing? Now, of course, you're gonna hear about the that BS, the conspiracy theory stuff, right? Now you're dealing with that, and I'm like, it doesn't make sense. These men were good. Jose Barbosa, you know, these are lawyers and doctors. Emilio Betances, these people were helping the people from the community trying to abolish slavery. Then I learned about Printor. Who's this man Printor? 1775. He petitioned to become a Mason. Right? He became a petitioner, and they went and let him, whatever. But he was 1775. They were bringing black men here in chains. But this man was fighting in Congress at the government level to free black men. So who was he? I'm like, oh man.
Not only that, but he had ears listening to what he was saying.
Yes.
You know, which is a beautiful thing. To have, it's one thing to speak.
Yes.
But if you're speaking on deaf ears, it's
useless.
It's useless. But you had people actually listening.
So the story that they fed us seemed off. Like, yo, so they respected this man to listen to him. Who was he? So now I started listening. I'm like, oh man, there's more to this story. So now it changed. It opened my mind up to be like, no, there wasn't just people just sitting here coming in and yeah, they slaves. No, there was people fighting. You start reading. There was people fighting for the freedom, for the abolishment, right? Not just blacks. There were whites fighting too. There were people fighting for the abolishment of slavery, right? For years. When I started learning about Prince, so now I started learning about masonry. And I tell you, my cousin, who's Philip Castanon, he was in Suffolk. It just, I'm a Cohen. I'm not a candidate. I'm still out in the street. I don't know masonry. When he brought me, I was like, nah, that's not really my forte. He brought me to his lodge. I'm like, that's not really, you know, I wouldn't vibe there. I'm a little rough in the edges. So when I'm my man, Louis Cruz, Past Master Louis Cruz, I rock with him. He's a Prince or Mason. I see what I'm like, oh, this is more my style. And I started vibing with them. I requested, he got me in. And then I learned what masonry is. Now as I get in, because we don't know. We know from the outside. You don't know masonry until you experience this.
Right.
Till you get to that altar, till you start building with the brothers. That's when you learn masonry. So I'm talking, and I started learning. I started traveling. And I loved it. Start traveling, going to different lodges, meeting brothers. Didn't matter what they was. I got white friends, black friends, Chinese friends. My man King, he's from Ancastoria. Good dude, right? And he became one of my closest friends, like a good guy, traveling back. I got him coming to Prince Hall. I got him all over. Right? And he's traveling with us. I got my good friend cigar smokers. That's how I got somebody into masonry through cigar smoking. That's how I got into cigar smoking through masonry.
Yeah, that constant, whatever it may be, there's always something to bring Masons and men together and dwell in fellowship of that nature, you know.
And that's the thing with Agüeybaná. Right? What we want to do is give a third of the ritual. The ritual unites us all, right? Anywhere in the world, We all went through this same or similar ritual.
Mm-hmm.
A third of knowledge, because knowledge is universal. There's brothers that come for this knowledge. And a third of fraternalism, right? The fraternalism is us chilling, us going, so it unites us. It brings us, like, you may not like to chill, you may not like to smoke cigars, right? But you love the ritual.
Right.
And you love talking about the ritual. Or you may love the knowledge. You like to peel back that onion. And you're like, yo, we could build on this. And everybody gets a piece of that, of what they came for.
Absolutely.
With respect, right? Because this is because you don't like to smoke or drink.
Mm-hmm.
Don't diss the brother. That's their thing. He may not like to memorize stuff. He's not gonna diss you because you like to memorize stuff. We all mean on a level.
On a level.
Yes.
And well, go to you, brother. As a child.
So as a child, very similar story to Worshipful Will, so I won't rehash the details, with the exception of I was on the other side of Brooklyn. I was in Southside Williamsburg, right? So if you look at my birth certificate, I'm a project baby. I come from Williamsburg Projects, Tenike. I saw my mother and my father get together and finally get out of the projects and get into a residential standard apartment. So I grew up as the youngest of majority of my neighborhood friends. You got your school friends, but y'all pretty much within a year of each other, right? But you always had two groups. I had my school friends and then I had my neighborhood friends. Because once we moved from Williamsburg Projects to the south side, walking to Bushwick was like 10 blocks. So two separate friends, right? My neighborhood friends, I was always the youngest. So I always got that little brother type of mentality, watch out for Tim, take care of TJ. But I was kind of forced to grow up fast because I wanted to keep up with them. So I'm, 9, 10, 11, they're 14, 15, 16. So I grew up quick, did what I did. But I always had this thing of, wake up and grind, get the money first. And it took me a long, long time to realize that that's not all to life. Masonry was the one thing that I looked at and said, that's something that if I was to join, I would actually be part of something bigger than myself. Because my teenage years and my young 20 years was always selfish. Whatever it is that I wanted. Get the money, get the latest phones, clothes, this, that, and the third. But eventually that all fades away. It's a materialism, right? Met my wife. She had her head on straight, had her own place, working 2 jobs. I'm like, oh, wow, I'm still living with my parents working 1 job. What's that new situation like over there? Thankfully, she opened up the home, brought me in. We stood together. We're making 16 years now this year. Got my son, 13 years old. And transitioning from that me category to now looking at what Masonry does. Being that helping hand. That what's that saying? You don't look down on somebody unless you're helping them up. That was a nice transition for me. And I seen that development. Even going into being able to now sit in the chairs, because my first 2 years of Masonry, I don't want this to come off sounding bad, but it's not that I didn't take it serious in a bad way. I couldn't take it serious in a good way because of the fact that I had 1 foot in New York, 1 foot in New Jersey. So I was partly living in New York, partly living in New Jersey. My wife and son would travel with me because I was thinking about moving out there. I got a job out there. So Masonry, being a New York Mason, I was just attending for the sake of attending. Once I got a job back in the city, and we said, you know what, we're going to stay in our original apartment in the city. We're going to scrub New Jersey. I was able to jump into Masonry with both feet. And that took me to a new level because now I could really get involved. I could really learn. And it wasn't just, taking it for like, oh, yeah, I'm a member who pays dues.
Well, how'd you get into Masonry?
So my first attempt, I was like very young. I went to the Grand Lodge webpage, put in my info. Nobody ever got back to me.
Well, reverse that. How'd you hear about it? Because, as a young kid, especially in the city kid, I didn't find out about this until I saw it, in a movie, or you go to school and you see, different historical figures, and you start, getting into that and seeing that all of these things bind these men together. But how did Masonry cross paths with your interest? Like I said.
So being the young buck of the squad, that was the time where everybody was on the Mary Jane, and it was the Illuminati conspiracy theories.
Okay.
So I heard about it, but never took it serious because I'm like, all right, yeah, some stuff goes on in the world, but
It's just conversations amongst friends.
Yeah,
and
so,
stuff that comes up in music. And
I'm sitting on the outer circle. They're there in their little smoky circle, and and this and 13 blood families and all this other crazy stuff. And I'm just like, oh, okay, that's cool. But once again, that was selfish. Tim was like, but that's not applying to me right now. You guys can fight and argue and make T-shirts, whatever you want to do, but tomorrow, what we doing? How are we gonna get this money? And then when I got older and I was able to, drive and travel and stuff like that, my aunt did some type of event, which funny enough was on the 24th Street side of the Grand Lodge building. Happened to see the Square and Company. I was like, that looks familiar. I think I know something about this, but I don't know what. Phones were out at the time, like we talked about. So did a little Google search. Said, oh, these are who these people are. I thought they were underground conspiracy theory, like the Dan Brown books. Have no clue. Until you get a black hood over your head when you walk out of your apartment. All of a sudden now you're a Mason. So I tried to attempt to join to see what it was about. Got left on red. In all fairness to the respect of the Grand Lodge of New York, at that time we were only accepting men 21 and over.
Oh, okay.
I was still under 21, so I left it alone. That same New Jersey job, a coworker happened to be a Mason. He was like, "Oh, I'm going to go see some Broadway play." I'm like, "Oh, parking in the city's crazy. I live in the city. Where you gonna park at?" He said, "Oh, I'm gonna park at my lodge." Would have been the 24th Street parking side. So I was like, "Oh, that place on 24th Street." His eyes lit up. "Oh, you're a Mason?" I was like, "No, I was interested at one point, but never got any feedback, so kind of just let it fall to the side." He was like, "Well, if you're ever interested, look up some stuff and talk to me." Went home. I'll skip how much research I did, but did my research, and within 2 weeks, I said, "Hey, I want to join." At that moment, I didn't realize how important Masonry is to a man. This brother was maybe 3 to 5 years in arrears of dues.
Wow.
Paid up 5 years worth of dues just so that he could sign my petition and be there for my first degree before he had to relocate out of New York City.
That's amazing.
And that's when I truly saw this organization shows you that you can be part of something that's bigger than yourself. Because he took money out of not only his hands, but let's say his wife, his kids, his grandkids, because he was an older gentleman, for just a coworker that he knew less than a year, because he believed that Masonry can help men, and he saw something in me that I didn't see until years later. And it's just a beautiful transition. And I think the theme here is there's so many young kids of either Puerto Rican descent, Dominican, whatever have you, from any type of rough neighborhood, that have the quality to be better men, but may not be able to exercise that because they don't know who we are.
Yeah.
But thankfully, for the 3 brothers on my side, when they see that flag and that banner, they'll know where to go.
Mm-hmm. It's an arrow in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
It's that slow ember that turns into a burning fire. We do it all the time. We fall in love with people's potential, and sometimes they don't ever get to that point. And it's because you're on the wrong path, or you're just not there. And the way Masonry teaches you to peel back layers on every aspect of life, it's such a beautiful thing. It's a constant reminder to just always be in the present. We get caught up in the future. We get caught up in the past. And Masonry, it kind of instructs you to just pay attention right now and look for whatever symbol, whatever sign, whatever it is that may be, to just remind you to just get back on the path, to get back to your purpose, and to remind you of your why, right? Why did I do this? Why did I start? What fills me? You had mentioned that, prior to Masonry, you were selfish, the cell phones, or this, to that. But that was your why. That's what filled you. You're still selfish, but the why and the things that fill you now is just being of service. Yeah. And that's sometimes the best member. I'm selfishly gonna, stick to my purpose and make my environment better, whether it's at work, whether it's lodge, whether it's at church, in the household, you know, I feel that there's something in me that can, you know, influence my reality to be better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we focus sometimes too much on the seed of our own accomplishments and the things that we want in life, but it's fertile ground that's the most important thing. A seed doesn't grow in a packet.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same seed. But when it's in fertile ground, that's when it just sprouts and, you know, really grows. And then just the watering it of the coworkers, the fellow brothers, family, you know, living in the same image of the example that you set, it really just does something for the greater
Yeah.
whole.
It was a complete 180 because, like I said, I started off selfish, and when I got told I was going to be the staff officer for the First Manhattan District, you have 3 offices to choose from: Grand Sword Bearer, Grand Director of Ceremonies, or Grand Steward. I chose Grand Steward. A lot of people say why. I say there's multiple reasons, but for the sake of the podcast, a steward is known for service. So, you know, I'm a Mason now 11 years. You know, 20 plus years ago, Tim would have never sat in that seat. No, that's not me. I don't do that. But now it's to be of service in any shape or capacity. You know, Worshipful Master Victor will call me, hey, you know, I need this. You think you can handle it? And sometimes I probably scare him with whatever tactic I'm going to take, but it gets done, you know, because
And that's the goal.
and that's the goal. Yeah, it's to provide that service, you know. So it's been an amazing journey, and I look forward to what comes next.